A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
I hope you're liking XLRI over here.
Yeah, I come here quite often, so I'm a visiting professor over here
Yeah.
the past 15 years. So I come here quite often, and I'm aware of all these classrooms and all the setup.
I think these are pretty much familiar to you now. So, sir, like before going on to the specific questions, I want to just like to know how was the panel discussion which was there in the morning along with other panelists as well.
So the panel discussion topics were interesting. It was a bit heavy on the technology side, and good thing is most of the panels thought alike. The same stuff in different ways. People approach the same stuff in different ways, but overall, the objective or the goal or the purpose sort of are similar as to why people do it and what is the influence of technology in, let's say, for a CXO in any field. The only issue over there is that in the current world, we start taking a lot of things for granted, or a lot of technology for granted, and a lot of discussions surround around digital technology. The fact remains that digital technology is essential, it's necessary, but by itself, it's not sufficient. Digital technology can only support other technologies which are more useful. For example, you could have better agro products with digital technology. 70 years back, you needed basic science for improving agricultural output. The result of which is today there's hardly anyone in India who goes hungry. Similarly, the other stuff as we kept on progressing. So currently, if you look at what people understand by technology and the in thing is Gen AI, how do we use it for the same application to sort of predict or minimize the influence of variability of nature for more consistent output. So that sort of sums up what the way of thought process should be, even if we talk of just digital technology. There could be a whole lot of other stuff that
makes sense. And I think, like you mentioned, all the panelists were having a similar thought process that might have been easier for the entire discussion as well as for the students and other members who were listening to it.
Net at the end of the day, you see everyone who lands up heading a function or a company has gone through the same grind. And so they would probably continue to think at some point it would converge, the thought process.
Makes sense, sir.
People may have different experiences, the same issues may manifest itself in different people's lives differently, different functions differently. But at the end of the day, it does converge to a point.
Makes sense, sir. And let's see how digital technology moves forward in the entire industry. So, moving on to the questions, sir. So, very first question, what I got into my mind when I know that Sudipta sir is coming, you are having a stellar career at Tata Steel from last 28 years, right? So, very specific questions on the same that your leadership in metallurgy engineering has influenced very large scale projects in Tata Steel, right? So, what excites you the most about the future of material science? Like we discussed about the technology front of it, but what actually excites you going forward in the material science field altogether, from your experience which you had from Tata Steel?
So, specifically from Tata Steel point of view, steel is there to stay. And that's for a reason. There are certain characteristics of steel, let's say stiffness, which no other material can provide as well as steel can. As a result, that's there to stay. However, that does not undermine the importance of other materials. In fact, historically, if you look at materials, every time from the Stone Age, the moment people started realizing that they could use something, any material, at the end of the day, whatever you see over here is all material. At some point of time, even you and me are material. So, the moment people realized that they could use a stone to hit somebody, their life changed. They could use a stone as a tool. There were two ways of doing it. Either you could put it into destructive use, like killing each other, or you could use the same stuff for some constructive use to make life better for yourself. Right? And with each breakthrough that has happened in the history of mankind, every time a new material has actually improved people's lives. Yes, there are influences of other engineering fields as well. A lot of stuff that we see today, the scale of things that are happening today is all to do with the invention of steel. And that's where people realize they could scale things up. Seriously, way beyond people's imagination. And so, even in material space, there has been a lot of breakthroughs. There are certain conflicts that exist in nature. For instance, in a material, you cannot have a hard material and a flexible material together. It's a conflicting thing. Either something is flexible, then it's not very hard. If it is hard, it's not flexible. And so, with advancements, scientists, metallurgists have managed to find alternates and improve upon steel or any material for that matter. There were other materials which walked in. For example, plastics. They had their own breakthroughs. It made things much lighter. As much as people can keep on complaining about not being eco-friendly, really, I mean, it's only one part of plastics which are not eco-friendly. But yes, plastics were a magic material when they were invented. And there's been a whole lot of places where plastics being used in different ways, polymers being used in different ways. Nobody uses leather these days, right? So what's this material? So it's to do with that. So the future of materials are actually going to become, so one of the things that we need as a human race, we need to learn is to be more frugal in exploiting Mother Earth. Whether it's in the form of energy or whether it's in the form of materials, we need to learn how to extract less and give a better output. Right? Frankly speaking, you name any material and the amount of input that goes into the material. So typically it's 6 to 7, and if you look at these fancy powered solar cells that you are talking about, then it gets even worse. Lithium-ion batteries, it gets even worse. So at least 1:6-7 ratio is what the final output is. So you put in 7 units of one and you get 1 unit of the output. So that's how efficient our totals are. Net, it needs to improve on its efficiency. So there's a whole lot of room that's available today to improve efficiency. Which means, in other words, use the resources of Mother Earth frugally so that we would tend to live longer. We've managed to create havoc in the last 300 years because of the speed of progress that we wanted. And it's time we start realizing that we need to go slow, not in terms of providing utility of technology, but in terms of actually consuming less resources.
And I think I've read somewhere sir, that steel is something which defines the economy. So definitely steel is there to be there for us, but going forward, I think like you mentioned, there will be many more materials which will be coming in, but we have to use them sustainably. That is what we have to do, right?
So every material has its own use. It's not undermining any material per se. So generally speaking, each material tries to undercut the utility of other materials, right? Even today, probably the most, I'm making a very revolutionary statement over here. It won't go down there. A lot of wood is still a very eco-friendly material in terms of carbon footprint. Right? So really every material has its place. The whole question is how well are you utilizing the material per se. Future is going to be more sophisticated. People need fancier stuff. Lithium ion give way to perovskite for the same purpose and so on and so forth. At the same time, we also need to constantly keep an eye on how less natural resource we use. Lithium ion was a big thing, everybody said lithium ion in the future. People suddenly realized that lithium ion consumes the carbon footprint of lithium ion is very, very large. So really, is that the panacea for the world? Probably not.
I think we have to go towards more of a sustainability point of view of how we are utilizing the resources.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. So moving on to the next question, sir. So customer centricity is something which is heart of Tata Group as well as Tata Steel, right? And your ability to build a strong industrial relations is really commendable. So what have been your guiding philosophy in fostering these trust and collaboration with the partners which you have interacted by being there with Tata Steel? So how exactly how that goes?
Okay. Unfortunately, I sometimes feel very sad that we live in a country where customer centricity is like, okay, there is nothing called customer centricity. And the only reason everybody survives because everybody treats their customers badly. Everybody. That's the reality of this country. So you see, a lot of people, somebody in US might tell you, oh, I'm very unhappy with this service. So you really go back and ask him, what are you unhappy about? You realize the reference frame that's used for a poor service over there is very different from a reference frame that's used for a poor service in India. Unfortunately, that's the reality. And so, yes, there is an effort that's going on to know your customers better. And that's, of course, a journey that keeps on going. Will continue to go on for as long as I can see it. But a lot of stuff that we were doing, we need to undo it. For instance, the whole question is, do we really listen to our customers? And I don't think so. Simple stuff. Every company monitors its sales. Do you know of any company which monitors plus sales? There is no data on plus sales. Every company tracks customer complaints. Do you know of any company which tracks customers who expressed grievance and the grievance were not entertained.
I haven't heard of this.
Just to give you a statistics, 65 to 70. So fortunately, I've tried getting access to them. Not in my company, in industrial center. Give you a feedback as to you need to improve things this way. And they didn't have an opportunity for it. Because you weren't ready to listen. You were too busy admiring your own creation to be able to listen to them. Right? So that is a big challenge in customer centricity. That's something that I've been working on, and to make more and more people aware that more and more companies aware that we need to listen. It's more important to track the rejections than to actually track the data that gets captured. The whole question is look for the data that you're not capturing. And that's where the secret lies. So, and with AI today, you can be creative enough to get access to some of this stuff.
Correct.
Okay, I think we have to cut it down. I normally don't get phone calls.
No worries.
I forgot to switch my phone. I was wondering it was kept over there. So, where am I? Talking of customer centricity.
Correct.
So I did talk about not having enough information about the customer. Yeah, so the other part with regard to customer centricity that I am intrigued about, and I keep on telling people, suppose tomorrow you will get into the business world, and you will, let's say, have customers. What would you prefer? A customer who complains or a customer who doesn't complain?
I think, sir, from my standpoint, a customer who complains so that I know where my shortfall is.
So, and why would you do that?
To improve
Okay.
business.
So please understand, it takes, how many people actually buy a product in the market and then say, I am desperately waiting for the time when I can go back and complain?
There are very
Nobody.
few.
Nobody. Really nobody. I have bought it for a utility. I did not buy it to log a complaint.
Correct.
Right? So as long as the product is delivering the promise, it's too much of an effort on my part to go back and
Makes sense.
so when do I log a complaint? When I have hope
Yes, sir.
that the next time I buy the product, this drawback will be taken care of.
Correct.
Right? If I don't complain, I have actually given up.
Right.
So I have no hope left.
And that's where
Can the company expect me to return to buy that product a second time? So I have lost a customer even without realizing that I have lost the per customer because of customer centricity.
correct.
Right? So this is a big challenge that I have, and I've been trying to promote this to capture what is not captured,
Correct.
to get information that's not recorded anywhere, rather than to go by the standard documentation that it is.
Completely makes sense, sir. And thank you for putting out this viewpoint. This actually was very intriguing and to be new, to be very honest from that front. And thank you for sharing that, sir. So moving forward, sir, So after such a remarkable career in Tata Steel from last 27-28 years, and you have been a visiting faculty in XLRI as well, what continues to drive you and excites you each and every day? I do understand that there might be repetitivity of the work which you might be doing at times. So how do you keep yourself energetic and excited for work even after so many years?
So, you won't come across too many people who would have done engineering and then followed by business management and then gone back into engineering.
Correct.
There's a reason why I did that. In fact, it's not that I did not have an exposure to a lot of these management stuff. I did project management. There's a part when I was into other stuff, operations and so on and so forth. I went back into it for the love of chemistry. So I liked that subject, so I remained over there. And as you're right, I mean, unless you set yourself a purpose, it gets very boring.
Correct.
So there are two things I would suggest all youngsters should do. One is, whenever there is no bad job, I mean, I've seen a lot of these young people who, in any function, in any industry, there will be jobs which are celebrity-like.
Correct.
And then there will be jobs which are not very celebrity-like. It's not very haloed.
Lucrative.
Not very lucrative, not very haloed, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, this classification actually doesn't exist. If you want to ride the bandwagon and be a Me Too, then this first criteria, former, is what you will run after. If you can manage to leave a legacy behind, then doesn't matter which function you are in, you will convert that function into a lucrative function.
Exactly.
That's what people must be look for. People must look for. Okay?
Completely makes sense.
So it's about leaving a legacy behind. That's one. The other part that one must always endeavor to do is every week or fortnight, you must keep on exploring to learn one new thing. Okay? It doesn't mean that you start looking for different subjects to learn new things. It doesn't mean you read 10 literatures. It means you look at a situation, you look at a challenge or a problem, and try and go deeper into it. Right? So if you can manage to do this, if you can manage to keep your purpose and objective to leave a legacy wherever you are working, and you can keep a 2-3 years time span to build that up, and you take the effort to learn something new every couple of weeks, I think life is exciting and challenging. No.
Completely makes
Even
sense.
if you're in the same business and the same industry for the past 35 years.
I think the crux what I got from the discussion is that, sir, we should love what we are doing rather than going behind a lucrative things just for a short span of time, and try to learn new things every day or maybe once a month so that we are updated with the things and we can put out our brain to things we love.
Absolutely.
Completely makes sense, sir. So moving forward, sir, like you mentioned that you gone back to the engineering side because you really loved chemistry and specifically metallurgy when we are talking about, let's say, Tata Steel. So metallurgy as a field is something which is not very widely known, at least in India. There are very few colleges wherein metallurgy is being taught. So what would you say to inspire more students to explore this fascinating field of materials and metallurgy altogether? Because people might not know what exactly is happening during this industry.
So unfortunately, teaching material science is an expensive proposition. It requires quite a bit of an investment. So unless the institute that you're studying in is big and reputed, you would generally not find a metallurgy department in that institute, unfortunately, or a material science. But if you really love chemistry as a subject, it's actually a very exciting area to work on, because at the end of the day, so what you need to visualize is, you must realize mankind cannot create anything in this universe. Everything comes from Mother Earth. Everything comes from. So if you pick up a stone on the street and look at the car in the parking area, can you imagine converting that stone into that car? Okay, that's what we do. So if I take you to an iron ore mine, you will actually be looking at stones.
Correct.
Right? And then you are sitting in that car and driving it off. Difficult to comprehend that car was made from that stone.
Yeah.
So right from the point, please understand, right from the point where, so the question is, stones are there everywhere. Why would you start digging in over there? And you know how they dig? They actually dig deep holes and then collect material from there and check what is there at what level.
Okay.
Right? So I am not a mining engineer, I am a metallurgy engineer. So I asked these guys long back, 30 years back. I said, why are you digging over here of all places? You don't know what's inside. So you must have seen something on the surface of the land which drove you to start digging over here.
Correct.
So this gentleman gave me a big smile, and he was digging for coal. So I said, can I go back home and start drilling in my backyard if I get coal over there? So it's that exciting that a lot of stuff that you can't imagine, deep forest, stones and rocks, and then you see this fancy stuff.
Correct.
Correlating from one to the other. So yes, but do it if you loved it. Do it if you think it's your calling. I took up metallurgy because I wanted to pursue chemistry and study further on it. Yes, sometimes you do land up not getting exactly what you want. I was more fascinated with liquid steel and liquid iron. That's extractive metallurgy. I am on the product side, which is a lot of physical metallurgy. Very different from extractive metallurgy. But yeah, I mean, it's a question of really that whole vision of converting. But what I would suggest is really not everybody should start studying metallurgy. Study, there are some fundamental basic subjects. All other subjects are built on that. Look for your calling. And if you are comfortable with it, please understand whatever you choose, you've got to live your whole life with that. So if you don't like it, you'll not be able to live with it.
Correct.
So
it's
take
quite
a calling and then.
It's quite fascinating, sir, and whosoever want to turn that specific stone into car, definitely try for metallurgy, I would say. So moving on to the last question of the interview, sir. So we talked about how you keep yourself exciting during the day, how metallurgy is evolving, how the technology is evolving. But from a business management student myself, so since your career has spanned technical as well as managerial positions since last 2.5 decades, right? So what advice would you give to the management students now? We have talked about the engineering students who would like to pursue metallurgy as a field, but from our perspective, on what advice you would give to those management students who will become a future leader down the line, sir? Or how should we take it forward from here?
I'm not sure whether I've given this subject enough thought to guide people, but so by the time you complete your MBA, most of you would be what? 24, 25, 23, 25?
Mostly that range.
My belief is that's age enough for you to start thinking or sort of get an idea broadly at what functions and areas you would like to spend your time with. Don't get carried away. You see, in these schools, they have this waves.
Correct.
Right? In our time, when we were graduating, the wave was to get into financial companies, NBFCs, and stock markets and so on and so forth. So I have a whole lot of friends who are in that business. There were few of us who decided to do different. Really, at the end of the day, it's about your choice. So look for, the company matters. Salary, okay. However, what's important is choosing the function you would like to pursue in your life.
Makes sense.
Because you can experiment with the function in the beginning, let's say for 2 years, but by the third year you should sort of narrow down to converge to what is the function you would like to pursue. Then start building an expertise in that function. Doesn't matter what the company is. As a result of which you have to switch. My suggestion is don't switch too often. Not a good idea. Because after the 5th or the 6th switch, people wouldn't like to touch you. Unless you are in that sort of a field. For example, project execution. And you have a good reason. The project gets over, you're out anyway.
Correct.
Right? So you are an expert at project execution. Wherever on earth there is this project coming up, you will be there.
Correct.
Right? You're a specialist in that. So that's again a choice. So that's okay. But look for the functionality or expertise in the functionality rather than money, rather than general management. General management will eventually happen. Right?
Correct.
Interestingly, to become good in one function, the grind that you go through or the insights that you get are pretty similar to the grind and the insights that you get from any other function.
Right.
Right? So it doesn't matter. So once you become good at a single function, you've got an idea what it takes to start picking up the other stuff. So that's where beyond a certain time you'll find, yes, people will identify you as a person getting into general management.
Completely makes sense, sir. And I think every student of management should listen to what sir have recently said, and that was quite an eye-opening thing, like you mentioned previously as well. Do what your calling is so that you don't get bored. So that is how we should end this interview on that note, sir. Thank you so much for the insights and things which we have discussed. We'll be looking forward to meet you again, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.